Well, this morning we're going out in the garden because the flowers are really coming out now. Although there's not much sunshine yet, there will be later, but we'll make a start now while it's still cool. And we're going to try acrylic inks first and pastels and then go on to acrylics. Well, the gardens are just coming onto their own now. The sun's not out at all yet, it's still very grey, but I want to have a go at showing Margaret how we can use this mixed medium of pastels and acrylic inks and water and so on. There really are some lovely compositions in this garden now. Even inside the greenhouse things are still coming up really well, with tomatoes growing here and the peppers coming on well now as well. The composition I'm looking at this morning is behind me, but at the moment you can see just how beautiful the garden is, how it's come up. And we've got all of the cabbages and the beans and everything come up really well now. So I'm very pleased with my little potager. I can't do a lot of work, but we're going to have a go at these big red poppies. That's what we're doing this morning. I'm going to do a loose wet into wet acrylic ink and pastel of these, see if we can manage that to give you an idea. Must be a painting here as well. Board side by side so Margaret can be beside me. We've got the Unison pastels here, including the new dark set they've offered, which is lovely. And I've got a tray for my Indian inks, which I'll need to be more level. I'll put that down a bit more that way, otherwise the inks will be spilling out everywhere. The Indian inks are down here, so not Indian inks, acrylic inks, using the FW acrylic inks, my brush sets, and also a spray there, diffuser spray, which is very useful because if you want to keep things wet. Jar of water. Let's just get these inks out, the colours we're going to need. And I'm going to want the red, of course, so I'll start off with that. With a good shake up first. You can actually draw with these bottles as well. The nozzles have a rubber top here, and you can suck out the ink you want and then squeeze it in. And you can actually draw with these as well, which is rather nice. So I shan't want, they're very, very strong, I shan't want too much. You can't put them back in again as well, so that's a bit of a nuisance. I'm going to want some orange as well. Now, like watercolour, we're going to start with our lightest colours and work through to our darkest as we go along, all in one go. So, hopefully I've given that a shake enough. They've been settled for a long while, that can take some getting going. But I've got another palette here, I'm just going to put some greens out as well now. We'll do quite a bit of the work with this, and I mean, as I say, sometimes we find we don't even need the pastels. We just enjoy ourselves so much with these colours that the other ones aren't required. Let's see how we do. Right, those are FW acrylic inks, and the full set of that I use of Unison pastels plus the new dark set on the left. Put the inks out, these acrylic inks, and we're going to use them with water with a wet into wet technique, and also we'll need a diffuser as well, so I'm going to need this little water spray to keep it wet and warm. Now, it would in some ways be better to have this flat. We've got a table here because it won't spread, but it's going to trickle down the paper a bit this way. It can't be helped, it doesn't really matter because we can go over with pastel. All I want to take in is the poppies and the lupins. I'm going to bring that lower poppy closer up to the top ones for the obvious reason, to fit it into the paper, although actually it makes quite nice. Pity this one isn't just out because that would be nice. You can watch me first if you want. You don't have to. Yeah, it might be an idea because when you see the mess I'm making, you're going to think, "What? I've done this." And I was at Burton Agnes Hall when I was painting there, loosely like this with pastel and these acrylics, which is where I invented this. I wanted a stronger watercolour, and I couldn't get the vibrancy I really wanted with watercolour, so I used the acrylic inks to get it. Okay. Then I needed to tighten around them, so I started using pastels as well. And this is where I started to develop the water and pastel, because I can use the pastel with the water too. So this is how the invention came about 20 years ago. It's almost as smooth as hot press. I didn't want texture for this, so this is an SAA practice paper. It's quite a reasonably priced one if anybody's interested. It's quite a good paper actually, the SAA practice paper. Much cheaper than buying the more expensive brands. Right, nice and wet. And we want to keep this wet. Once the acrylic inks dry, they're dry. You can't move them. All the while they're wet, you can control them. Yeah.
So watercolour you can lift out, but you can't lift that ink.
To a degree, but these are very, very strong, and this is why I want them. So it's going to trickle down the paper a bit. If you wanted it flat, you've got to get a table out for yourselves. I haven't got, unfortunately, magenta. I thought I might have. So if I want to make that pink, I'm going to have to either do it with my pastels later, or now we paint darker. We paint darker to put the light pastels on top. So it's like when I was saying the painting you've been doing with me, we work from our medium tones down to our dark tones and then work back up again to our light. We're going to put the highlights back in with the pastels. So what I want at the moment is to get these lovely effects of wet into wet, and I really want to keep this paper nice and wet. I don't want any dry edges on this. I'm going to have to spray it otherwise. Flooding down the paper. Let's start off with the lupins and see if I can find something like the colour I want there. I'm going to start with a little bit of lemon yellow at the top of that lupin here. Painting wet into wet. You see, you can paint it just as delicately as just as delicately as watercolour. So I'm just putting a thin coating in there at the moment, just to find my way. I want that thin because I want a very light colour yet, and I can put the other colours in later. This is just to get the effect of my lupin, as I would in a watercolour painting. So I'm painting it very light I would in the watercolour technique at the moment, wet into wet. Now I don't want hard edges, so I'm going to come back into this in a minute and deliberately spray it so it spreads everywhere. As with wet into wet watercolour, you have to know how far apart the spacing of the marks you're making will be before they close up and you've got just one blob of paint.
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's spread, it'll all just spread in together.
If you spread, it's going to spread even more, that's right. And we can move this around to suit the composition as I want a bit at the moment. Looking for those colours, really searching for those colours, going darker and darker into here. And I can do the detail and I can cut in with the pastel afterwards, so I'm really not concerned about detail or getting them correct. I want the effect of light, and I want the vibrancy of colour that I can get with this, and you're going to see in a minute. Now, I'm going to have to start spraying because the paper is drying out all over. Well, I want to keep, and if I spray that once, be careful, you see how that spreads? I've had this happen. I did a painting in New Zealand for some children at a school of a green cow. I made the cow green for fun. And I sprayed it like this, and they started laughing, and I thought, what's going on? Because I was facing them. When I turned round, the whole cow was coming down the paper because I'd sprayed that once too many. You see how that's coming down?
Oh, well, I've sprayed, I know, I always spray too much.
Lovely effects this way, so we're going to just use these effects. I'll come back to yours in a minute.
The lupins are running.
So I'm using a brighter orange now to come into this. Usually with something like this we play the warm reds against the cool reds, in other words magentas against cadmiums. I can't do that in this one today. I don't have that range of colour, but I do have enough to try and get this lovely effect, and I can work in with the pastels later. And again with the pastels, remember, I can come in with water as well. I don't have to just stick to so you get this lovely, this tremendous vibrance of colour. So it's observing very, very quickly, which is what you've got to get used to. It's one of your problems you found. You can't just slap the marks in any way. You're still observing and making marks that are about, if not exactly, no, but marks that are always about what you are painting. That green is there, and you wouldn't have thought of looking for it, I'm sure. But that green is there, it's reflecting from the flowers around. It's going to kill it a bit, but it will give it more vibrance also. But we don't want just one blob of colour happening here. So that's happened a bit there, look, because I sprayed it and it's dropped right down. But I can go back in with the pastels over that later, I'm not too worried. Those marks come upwards. Don't matter if it floods around a bit, doesn't matter at all. Come back up into these, they're drying. You see those are drying off, so I need to just keep that wet if I want to go dark into there more. See that spread down there, which is a nuisance. You can lift out, but it's not easy because it tends to stay. Hard edges, not yet. Keep them soft. Don't worry, because I'm going to go back in with pastel. That's a nuisance, that one.
I think the bottom one looks good.
I mean, yeah, it does give
I
the
quite
effects.
like
but,
that abstract look.
yeah, well, it does. And then say you can use it. But I want to lose
Gosh, that one's...
acrylic inks, which is what I'm after. And I do love this turquoise in this one. The acrylic inks are beautiful turquoise in this. I'm just feeling those leaves, flatter the brush more now as well as the tip to find the edge of the leaves. Marks that are about the leaves all the time. If it wasn't on the vertical, I'd be much more in control of this painting now because it wouldn't be all dribbling down the middle of it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter because I'm going to be able to... Let's say it's such fun that you might well say, oh no, I'm going to keep it just as it is and do another one and then we'll come back on it later. You've got to be so careful with the...
I was going to say with that spray, some sprays it comes out too fast.
Yeah. So there's various perfume diffusers you can get. Let's put a bit more purple out. And some of them are a fine mist, you know, being a lady. I don't use many perfume sprays, so I don't know these things.
Get one and it's half an hour, do you think?
It's
Just looking to see how long it took.
No idea.
It's 11:30.
So there's a start to our loose acrylic ink work. I say a lovely bright way to work, and now when it's dry I'm going to work over with pastel and we'll see how Margaret does with hers. It's dry enough to work now. Take long.
Yeah, I should have done.
So at this stage, before I do any more with pastel, I can still come in with a bit of the stronger colours. You found it? I've got it. Where was it? Yeah, that's lovely. It's a lovely bright colour. So much better. Keep the colour clean. You work up from the light orange to the red.
That's right.
You need to do your brush every time because you're going to lose colour. You had yellow on it, it doesn't matter if it goes into the orange, but do flick it off first. That's it. I just start with my pastels and I figure I'll start to pick out some of these colours. Let's start with an orange on the... And you see how we can just pick out the shapes. It should be just dry enough now. Now I can use water with this as well to blend them if I need, and I might do that later. At the moment I just want to pick up on these. You see what I'm doing here, Margaret?
No,
yeah, see the way it's working. I'm just using the pastel not to lose the vibrancy I've got, but to pick out and sharpen up edges. Is that alright? It's a bit dry, isn't it? It's starting. It's not yet. You need to spray that a bit. I can go back in with darks as well yet. I haven't finished by any means. I can come back in and make darks and use my brush and water as well as a mixed media piece. Yes, that's fine. You know, that's right. Now you can go to your background and
my greens.
Yeah, I start on the yellows in the background and then the turquoise. Get all your flowers done as you want them. That's nice. That's fine. No, that's lovely. Yeah, I would. I'm absolutely with you. Because the smashing effects, leave it alone. Yeah. You can incorporate them or go as far as you want. It's up to you. Painting loose like this is what I've said before. If you start loose, you can finish tight. You can't start tight and finish loose. So if you're having lovely loose bits amongst it, then you can keep those.
Green in the red poppies.
Yeah, because there is green. Remember, I did that light green tint
now that you've told me.
at the very end. Yeah, because it was amongst the. That's what people forget. They think, oh, red flower, blue sky, green trees. One colour comes into another always. And you've got to then think, well, how far am I going to go? Actually, I mean, I'm almost there with this picture in many ways, so I don't go too much further.
I want to start.
You need to lose that white in the background.
Yeah, I know, but if I spray it, it's going to all go on.
Well, it doesn't matter. You're going to lose those edges. I mean, you have to do that because it's maybe a bit further away. That's it. You need to get all of those edges softened in.
But you didn't. You still left white, didn't you?
Nope.
Oh, you didn't leave any white at all. Okay.
No, I didn't want any white. I've a little bit here that I'm having to cover over now, but.
Spray it.
what I would be doing is putting a bit of water or spraying that area and putting the dark in and letting it spread out to get the effect,
Yeah,
like you would with an iris.
Yeah. Okay.
So I drop the dark in afterwards, so water first, yeah.